Hello guys, and in this tutorial we will talk about the simple animation and the complete animation, and of course at the end of this course we talk everything for the simple to the main point of the CSS. After I finish the CSS course, we will complete the website together and wait for the main course in the next video. Well, we have reached the animation. Now you can see our website is simple, and you are hungry for new code, and you like to do something better like other website, what they create and how they create. Of course, JavaScript is the best in animation. Just go and see this tutorial of the Java. I don't have a plan to teach it for this moment, but I would like to stick to CSS more than JavaScript. Even if you see my website, you see I use 98% of the CSS and the 2% of the JavaScript. And of course, if I know more about Java, I'm sure my website goes better than this. But now let's skip and start with a simple animation. Well, I start with a menu. Usually for simple animation, every designer go in a menu first to create animation, and we do the same thing. Okay, let's start with a simple code. It's enough to copy the same name that you colored in CSS, then put it or paste it. I copy the menu li and paste it. Then you put a two dot and type hover front it. Well, now open the bracket, then set for new animation of the CSS and your animation begin. I go with a simple code to show you how hover works, so I type a transform. Let's start with a simple like a transform to move it, and that's all. But let me first explain what hover do. Hover animation do something that when you move the mouse on it, your animation starts without clicking. Let me show you and then try it by yourself. Okay, I type transform and press enter. Now type translate y 20 pixel. Now if you see what I create, when I move the mouse on it, it becomes animated. We made a simple animation. Now you see it go fast down, and if you want to add the effect, just go to the same div that doesn't have the hover and the type transition. Transition used for delay animation and be better, and usually the best effect is less 1 second. So every time you create a hover animation, always use the transition for have a nice effect. I always use this number. This number means that all animation that you add to this, delay it by less 1 second. Now come back to the menu and you will see this, and you will see the effect is better. If you want to always use the transition for the effect, you must know how the transition work, but sometimes it not work. For example, you would like there to be a delay 1 second between the width and the height. Just write the width for 1 second and the height 2 seconds. And you will see the width is delayed by 2 seconds, but it doesn't work sometimes. I go and research it about that. They say it should be a CSS 5, but some people say that the Firefox doesn't work. Firefox have a problem. I get angry sometimes when it didn't work. Anyway, I think our animation was too simple. Now let's go to tell about the before and after in CSS and how to use it. Now for explaining first, sometime if you want to create a square or something be a background, for example, and you want to add the width and the color for it, you create a div as you learn and name it, and you add some code to create it. But instead to create a div or create a new div, CSS give us a before and after, and of course it's very useful. I'll show you now how to use it and how to create it. Now, as I said, you don't want to create a div for a background or something else. Instead, I use a before. You see this is square made by before, and the front of the name of the div he used before, and he don't need again to create a div for a square. Okay, now how to create it? It's very simple, but if you use it a lot, you learn it fast. Okay, CSS need a div or something called to create before, for example. For example, if you see my alt folder div, I can create a before for it. Just go to alt folder and copy it and paste it. Let me copy it and paste it. After that, add the 2 dot and one more time. Then add the before and open bracket. Okay, you must add the 3 most important code to show up a before element in HTML first. First code, you must add the content and the press enter. Inside it, let be empty to show a before. I don't add any text in it. And then the next step, you must add the width and height for it to make it square. Let me type a width, for example, 15 pixel, and height same 50 pixel. Now in your website you see before element you created HTML. Now you can add a position absolute to move it. As you can remember, to create an absolute position, we need the first div be a boss. You must add a position relative to move your before in an alt folder. But alt folder have a position relative, so I go in alt folder before and type position, then absolute, absolute, and press enter. Then add the top and the left. Let me add it. Okay, now let me increase it in a Chrome inspect. Okay, let's start with the top 20 pixel and the left 20 pixel. Now to add the color, you can add the background. Let's be a white for now. Okay, here we go. We created before, and you can increase the width and height, or you can move it, or you can rotate it. For example, just type transform, then press enter. Now add the rotate, and inside the rotate, let me 45 degree, and you see it rotated. You can add the more style, for example, border radius be 10 pixel, and this code I will talk more about that in the next course, but let me finish before course. Okay, this is the animation. Well, you learn how and how to use it. It's very simple. Just copy the div, and paste it again, and add a hover. But this is important. You must add the front and name a div, then add the before be next. If your animation not work, it's because your hover must be a bit back, not front before. Sometimes it get an error, so every time if you get an error, remember that. Now open the bracket, then create animation. So I created before. For example, let me add the width and the height be 100 pixel, the top, and 100 pixel, and the top width and height be 100 pixel. Now let me add the top be 500 pixel, and now rotate it. Okay, let's see our animation. Oh, let's not forget the transition, and let's add the transition. Let me try width and the height. Width be less than 1 second, and the height be 1 second, a little more. Okay, it not work. As I said, it sometimes not work. You can add instead is in and out. Let me try it. Let me add 3. Then the type is in and out, and be 1 second. Yeah, yep, yeah, this is good. Now how is in and out work? If you see in an aspect of the Chrome, when you click on it, it's like a curve of After Effects if you to create animation better. Of course, if you work with the After Effects or Photoshop, and yep, this is how it works. Okay, now let's add the before for a menu to create animation. Okay, to create for every menu, what to do, you copy menu li and not menu li. If you create a menu li, it will create a before for just a box of a menu li, so it must be a menu li. Okay, let's add some code. The three most important code you must add. The first is the content, next width, and the next is the height. Okay, type content, let be empty. Next type width, let be 50 pixel, or let be 70 pixel is good, and the height be 20 pixel. I'll show you why now. I added 2 pixel for just height and the same width. Okay, I created before. Now let's move it. First, let be menu li be position relative to move any menu box. Or you can add it in a menu li it will be the same type position and relative. Okay, now let's add the position absolute. Let's add the top left, but let be our before to be center. Now, if I didn't tell you how to do in my course to let the div be center in my courses, I will show you. Now you can always use this. If you forgot, just copy and paste it. First, let the top be 15%, then the left 15%. Let me type it. Top be 50% and the left be 15%. Now let's add the last code, which is the transform. Type a transform, press enter, and add a translate. In a translate, you must add the negative 15% and the negative 15%. Let me add to show you. Okay, transform, translate, negative 50% and the negative 15%. Okay, this is our 3 code to let the div be always the center. You can always copy and paste it if you forgot it in your work, so always use it. Okay, next let's add the background. Let it be a white. You can change it if you want. Okay, now you see this is a before, and I think it must be a center, and I don't know why, but it doesn't matter. Let's move it a little down with a Chrome. It's easy. 8% is good. Let's add the inverse code and save it. Okay, now how to hide it? You can add the 3 animation to hover it. I go with the easiest one to teach you how to animate it, which is the opacity. Add opacity in a before and let it be a 0 to hide it. Let me add it, opacity, press enter. Okay, and let it be 0. Then copy the name and paste it. Add the hover from the name. Now add the opacity and let it be a 1. Now let's add the transition to make effect in our animation. Let's add the ease in. Okay, let's add the less than 1 second and the ease in and the 1 second. Now that's not good. I don't know why. Let's change it number. Now let's see. Yep, perfect, nice. This is the first way. You can add more animation. Let's use the second way, which is let width be 0 and in a hover be width 70 pixel. Okay, let me delete opacity. Okay, good. Let me add 0 pixel. Now add the width in a hover and be as 70 pixel. Let's see. Very beautiful. You can move it down. Let me show you if you want to be down. top increase in Chrome, top be 19%. Yep, is good. And you see, Chrome always help to make your work easy. Now the third one, which is I use in my animation, is a scale. Now let the width be 70 pixels and remove the width in a hover. Now to use a scale in a hover, type transform. Now this is important. If you just type a scale, then the translate of the first before it can be disappear, and we don't want to do that because we want to this before be center. So what gonna do, make sure to copy this translate and paste it. Now add a scale without any comma or anything. Let's add a scale fronted. Yep, is good, and be more than one. Now we're done. Let's see, I think it's bad. Let's use opacity too, and to see it better and add more scale. Let me add opacity in a before and be 0, and in a hover be a 1. Opacity 0 and opacity, and in a scale let me try 5. Let be square to love our animation. Let height be 14 pixel and the width be 14 pixel. Now let reduce scale little in Chrome. I think 2 is good. Now if you add the z-index, and I must tell you about the z-index, but you will learn in your next courses, but the z-index, let something be a front of the div or back. Let me show you, and in the next tutorial I will tell you more about that and the perfect to learn it. I added the index and it being a -1 in a manual I before, and add in a manual I add the index 1. Let me add it. Okay, and done. Which I tell HTML that these be a front and a before be a back to show a menu. Now let's change the background to blue and done. Okay, so this is about a before and after, and I didn't tell you about the after. Now sometime if you want to create another before, instead of the before you will type after to not create again a before. It's just like the same before and after. Okay, and in the next tutorial I'll tell you more about the simple animation, how to use it, how to use the before and after, because this tutorial is simple. I didn't explain more about that, so don't worry, I will explain more about animation, because the main work of our next tutorial is this animation and how to use it. Well, now we come to the full animation part. Well, it's not too difficult to learn it, but there are some problems that you need to understand it. It's almost like a math. Okay, let me start first. Type animation and press enter. Okay, for step or 3 you must do first type your name of animation, and then the next one is the second of the time of your animation. Type a time that you want to be animation. Then the third one, effect is slow, which is linear, and the last one is infinite, which make your animation not end. Okay, let me show you. I type path for the name of the animation, and then let be 2 seconds for now, then linear, then let be infinite. Let me type it. Okay, well, after you give it a name, you come here, you type keyframes in the next line, of the code, and the name of the animation that you set of your animation. Type keyframes, then path. Okay, keyframes makes you call your animation and animate it. Usually from 0% it starts up to 100%. You can see you can use 3 at 15% or 25% and 75%. I know I go with the easiest one to make sure you learn it fast. And I said it depends on your animation. It's like a math. It's like making a game that deals with math. Now at the 0%, what do you want to add for the CSS? For now, I transform it and make it translate be 0, because let be 0 be our starting point and not change it in our starting point. Now increase it in 100%. Let me type it 100%, and the transform be translate y little up or down. Let me type it transform, press enter, translate y, and let's be 13 pixel. Now this is our animation, but maybe you would like it to work start, go down, then back to the same line. And then you can add the 15% to this animation too. Let me show you what to do. First is 0%. Let me transform be a 0. Then add the 15% and let me translate to 30 pixel. Transform, press enter, translate y 30 pixel. Okay, now in 100%, let me transform 0. Be same after 0%, because our start point is 0 and our end point is 0. Just in 50%, it goes down. Okay, you see our animation, it goes down, then they return to the same line. This is a nice animation. You can add the 25% and 75% too if you want to add more animation. Now this is about animation, how to create animation with the keyframes and animation. I hope you like it. And most animation we use it most of the time is animation, not hover, because animation of hover doesn't work for the media, and I will tell you more about that in our next tutorial, why it's not good. But I think you must use animation more than hover it to learn it fast and create a nice animation. Now guys, before we finish this course of this lesson, something you want to call one of the four in a CSS, and you don't want to set a name of each of them. What I mean by that is, if you want to call it this and you don't want to add the class for it, CSS have a code called int. I don't know what it means, but doesn't matter. Here I use the code that calls it int child1. int is our real code, which is you call a member, and the child is a member of the div. As you can see, menu have a form member, and we type in the member number of the home, which is 1. I call it in the menu lia, and the fronted add the int child number 1. Let me add it. Okay, first int child number 1. Okay, now what? Let's move it with a simple animation to show you how the int work. Okay, now copy the 3 term and paste it again of this int child, and the number of the member be 2, and the number of the 2, and the child the 3 member of the 3. Now at the top in it, first one be 20 pixel, second one be 14 pixel, and the third one be 16 pixel. Let me add it at top and the center 20 pixel. This is the first member of the home, and the second one is be 14 pixel for the second member, and the third one is 16 pixel. Let me delete the animation. Yeah. And you can see it's not working. I think we must delete A, and let be li just let be just li, no need for A. Okay, now let's test it again. Okay, good, now working. First one 20 pixel, and the second one 14 pixel, and the third one is 16 pixel. And this is how int work. Hope you learn it, and see you in the next lesson.